Fantastic. Well, welcome back, everyone. I have moved. I'm now in a different room with some different speakers, and it's time for our first session, which is all about exploring those practical steps to help you run your business more sustainably, whether that's in your shop, your office, or just your general daily operations, really. And this session will cover some simple yet effective changes, as well as how to engage your team and your colleagues in the sustainability journey and really drive that engagement and really drive that sort of environmental responsibility that we're seeing across the industry now, which is wonderful. And I am absolutely delighted to be joined by two fantastic speakers this afternoon with Jennifer McCartney, Senior Travel Consultant at Barhead Travel, Silverburn Store, and Joe Whittle, Sustainability and Impact Lead at Travel Counsellors. Welcome, Joe, Jennifer. How are you both doing? You good?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm good.
really good, thank you.
Thanks so
Fantastic.
much for having us.
No, thank you very much for being here. Really looking forward to this conversation this afternoon. And just a reminder that before we kick off, if you see the chat and Q&A button, everyone, if you do have any questions for Joe and Jennifer, do drop those in there, and I will do my best to put them to them sort of throughout the session. But just to sort of begin, guys, I wanted to kind of get a sense of kind of both of your sustainability stories and your journeys, really. Like, what kind of made you passionate about sustainability? How did you get into it, and how have you kind of started to kind of introduce that in your kind of your careers and your places of work? And Joe, perhaps if we start with you, how did you first kind of get the passion for sustainability?
Yeah, so mine initially came through my studies. When I was at university, I studied physical geography, and when I was doing that, when you come to like picking your elective modules, I found that the things that most interested me were looking at how people interacted with the environment. The environmental stuff on its own felt a little bit isolated, but I found it really interesting how kind of we as people use the environment, how that impacts on us, and then you kind of have that cycle bouncing between the two different things. And so as I was going, I realised that that was essentially sustainability, looking at how we can continue to utilise the environment whilst not depleting it for years to come. So after uni, I started working at Travel Counsellors, but I wasn't initially working on sustainability. But as I was going through it, I still had that passion for it and wanted to get involved. So any little thing that came up, I would get involved with. And eventually the business said, we want to work on this. It's important to us. So I put my hand up. And so that's kind of what brought me into where I am today. So what was the second part of that question? I just talking.
Yeah, no problem at all. Just kind of those early first steps. Like, obviously, I know at Travel Counsellors you've done a heck of a lot in a short space of time, but kind of how did you kind of make those initial, things work and kind of get things off the ground initially?
Yeah, so as I say, the business decided that there was a need for this. So it wasn't as such that I was coming in and um, possibly making the first steps of something. They'd already identified that we had this requirement. And I think there was two parts really. The first demand initially came from our corporate clients, I believe. So we do both leisure and corporate travel. And where we're dealing with other businesses, maybe they're the B Corps, or maybe they're affected by regulation. They were coming to us, they were asking about carbon data and how they can travel with a lower carbon footprint. So I think that was maybe the first thing that put it on our radar from a customer point of view. And then internally, we have a set of core values, and one of them has always been care, and we talk about that quite a lot as a business, and it wouldn't really align with we wouldn't really be living our brand values if we didn't act on sustainability, because that's something that touches on people in destinations all around the world where we're sending our customers to, that are working with day to day. So it was something of an open door really when I came into it, in that I wasn't having to do too much of a culture change. There was already an appetite there for it. It was more just getting people together and trying to get a bit of a plan as to how we what actions we want to do over the coming years and how we implement them.
Yeah, no, fantastic. The kind of the seed was already there, and kind of what
Exactly.
you've done and what we'll talk about sort of in a bit kind of went on from there. That's great. Thank you, Joe, and Jennifer as well. And the sort of same question to you, really. Kind of what made you excited about sustainability, and kind of obviously now at Barhead, kind of what drives you on to kind of grow that throughout the company.
Yeah, so kind of similar. I was in college and university, and it was more like every module that we were doing, sustainability had some role in it. So it was kind of naturally introduced to me through that, just like little bits here and there. And then when it got time to do my dissertation, I had really picked it up and I'd used that as like a kind of core value of adventure tourism in Scotland. And then when I drove over and finished university, when I came into like the travel industry, there really wasn't a whole lot of speak about it. And it was more when the TTG Sustainable Heroes program had launched in 2023. My manager had put me forward for it because obviously I had that like role and knowledge already, and then it kind of just went from there. Like obviously our head office kind of takes control of a lot of our like branching out, and then this is kind of like what our focuses are, but they really wanted to have people actually in branches that were heavily involved, and then kind of getting that knowledge to be able to start feeding it back towards the other consultants.
Fantastic. And yeah, and just jumping off there, kind of in your branch in Silverburn, kind of what exactly have you introduced to limit your environmental footprint, and kind of and how has that, I guess, kind of been adopted and used across the groups? And I know you're really engaged with that, Jennifer, aren't you? You're really part of that.
Yeah, so our branch was the first, well, second branch really to get like a full new refit. So when we had moved, we had literally got all new like technologies put in, like the LED lighting. So the focus was to make it as sustainable as possible from the get-go. So when we went in, we got all the LED lightings, we got the new screens so that we were reducing like the paper cards in the windows. We went to like no single-use plastics, everything like that all kind of got wiped from our branch. And then now I think there's like a good few more branches, I think maybe about 10 or 11 now across Scotland, England and Ireland that are getting new refits as well, just to kind of bring the company up.
And what do you think, an agent here perhaps who has a store on the high street, what are maybe some of the some could say small but impactful ways that maybe tomorrow, if they wanted to kind of start by limiting that environmental impact, what would you maybe suggest that they look at in their business?
Well, a lot of our customers that will come in, so like used to be like you would print tickets off for them. Customers would come in and be like, right, we want everything done. You're the travel agent. We come in, we get our tickets printed and everything like that. So now we've started setting them up with like the online portals. So if you're booking any holidays with them, you'll set them up while they're sitting in front of you, and you'll show them how to like use like the apps and how to control everything by their phones, just so that they feel like they've got a bit more control in it. And then also, like when you say to them, like you don't need your tickets emails anymore, so we set up a lot of things from the get-go for them so that they're comfortable using it, just to kind of minimise that impact. And then again, if you're in there wanting quotes, like if they say, okay, print that off, actually, sorry, we can't print it off, but we'll send you a full email. And then we've got quote generating systems in place that literally has everything they could ask for. It's like pictures, videos. It's just a lot more interactive for the customer as well. It really brings to life the holidays. So it's like a good kind of selling point as well to show them what we're offering.
Yeah, no, and more sort of digitization. Yeah, and Joe, how are you finding that with your TCs? Obviously, a huge home working network there, so people not necessarily in sort of retail stores per se. But are you finding that sort of move towards digitization is being more adopted by customers? And kind of how are you advising your travel counsellors to limit their impact and kind of how they're operating with their customers there?
Yeah, absolutely. Just on the digitization point, we found it aligns quite well with like improved customer experience anyway, in that anything you put on paper and print out is obviously very static. There's only so much you can do with that in terms of improving it. And when you look at everything else, everything's moving online now. So people just get used to that kind of elevated experience, more interactive that you can get with being online. So that's one of the places where you can align sustainability and customer experience really well. So it's kind of an easy switch to make. So definitely, I think that's a really good one. In terms of what we've been doing with our TCs kind of day to day, a lot of ours have been focused more around the travel that we sell. By the way, I don't know, I don't think I mentioned before, but we're a franchise model business for anyone who doesn't know travel counsellors. So I'm here at our head office, but our travel counsellors are all home workers. So just kind of an important detail there in case you weren't sure what I was talking about when I made that distinction. But a lot of what we've been doing has been about more focused on the travel that we sell in terms of like the day to day. It's really going to be a bigger focus for us in the coming months. That And a lot of that has come down to how we do our carbon footprint reporting. So I won't go too much into the details of that. But we're having homeworks and some of the difficulty of knowing kind of what is actually going on there, in that you're like a step removed from the head office. We haven't quite got into the detail of that so much. So far, it's been mostly like sharing blogs and tips, but we're just currently getting together a plan for the next couple of years to try and help people. Looking at some webinars, keeping it interactive for people, helping them engage with things like that. But a lot of it comes down to like fairly simple stuff that people do day to day, like stuff that we've been doing here, and you've got branches like looking at how we can reduce energy wastage. Again, it's another of those things where sustainability aligns quite nicely with the financials on it, like saving money. So if there's anywhere where you can introduce any kind of turn-off policies within your office place, making sure that kind of last person out turns everything off. We're quite fortunate here that we have things on like a time switch. So if you can do that, brilliant. Same with your machines as well. Something that we're currently looking at is having timer switch on a machine, just to make sure that if people forget to turn them off, there's a kind of a fail safe at the back end of it. You can get some if you are working in an agency which you manage centrally through your phone. I can't think of any names, any of the off the top of my head. But,
Don't worry, TG. It's not the BBC. You can definitely say a brand name if you can think of it.
Right, okay. Well, actually, I can't think of one off the top
Okay.
of my head now, but I'm sure you can find them quite easily. And again, I'd always try and take out human error where you can do. Often people have like the best intentions, and you can kind of communicate that to people really well. But eventually, people will forget certain things. You know, there might be someone who's kind of not quite as used to it as other people are. So where you can remove that, that's a really good thing to do. Like I said, having like a centrally managed timer switch is a nice, easy way. You can save money yourselves, and obviously there's a benefit that we're all here for today, reducing our environmental impact as well.
Yeah, and Joe, you make a really good point there, and I'm sure one that we'll hear throughout the week as well about the business case for sustainability as well. I know that those two things are becoming so much more aligned nowadays than maybe they were, a few years ago, and that kind of maybe moves me on sort of the next part of the conversation, really about engaging colleagues and engaging team members and engaging staff to think about sustainability and responsible travel. Maybe if we just stay with you for the moment, Joe, kind of how do you find that a number of your travel counsellors, as Jennifer said, been involved in our Sustainable Travel Ambassadors program, which is wonderful. How have you kind of seen that engagement for responsible travel growing in the company over the last few years? Has it come from passionate individuals? Has kind of the head office team, have they kind of come together to drive that? And what kind of advice would you have to someone who's thinking of wanting to do it themselves in their own company?
So yeah, in terms of like how it's grown, I'd say in some instances organically. So when we first started, we tried to get a working group together of people, and I would recommend trying to do that across different functions where you can, and different experience levels. So we've got it to a really good point now where we've got people, our travel counsellors who are selling travel. We've got people like myself and other people in the support team from various different functions in the business, right from C-suite and someone who's maybe only been in the business for a couple of months. So what I say about it starting organically, there's different people who will have a passion for it, but kind of bringing them together is a really useful tool and something that we've found really great in terms of encouraging that enthusiasm and that passion for it, but then also making use of it as a business. So we all meet up once a month, and we'll share different ideas in this meeting, things that we can go and implement in the business. And by having different people in there whose roles don't overtly relate to sustainability, like for example, there might be people in tech, someone in accounts, in HR in there, they might be able to bounce ideas off one another. And same with like the different travel counsellors I mentioned, we'd have people who were kind of independently becoming enthusiastic about sustainability and wanting to implement it in their business. And they've each come up with their own great ideas, and everyone's pretty happy to share them with one another. It's not like we see it or they see it as a competitive advantage or anything. So bringing that together and getting people in one room or one kind of online chat is really useful. You can bounce ideas off one another. It really goes from strength to strength from there, I would say. And it helps to make it a consideration across the business as well. As I mentioned, where you have someone who's kind of independently become enthusiastic about the subject, they may not bring that into work. Whereas if you set up a platform within work for that, people start to see it more in the day to day. And I think where we have had more success with this, where it has been spread across the business and it's touching on everyone. And I think that's an important thing for everyone to take away, really understanding that it isn't just one person's role in a business. It's something that in order for us to do well, we've all got to see it in our day to day and start picking up little bits here and there.
Yeah, I think that idea of that collective responsibility is great, isn't it? And Jennifer, similar sort of question to you, really, in terms of how, you guys at Arhead have done that. And obviously, you're very passionate about it. I know you've got a committee and sort of like working groups similar to travel councillors. Kind of, how have you kind of collected all that passion and put it to good use?
Yeah, so when we were doing like our workshops, it was like a really good way to like collect all the information. So like that was more like in my team, like when I was coming off, I was able to really kind of spread that awareness. But by the end of it, I had like a full booklet of information that I'd learned that was easy just to like collate and then pass off the head office. So it was a lot easier for them to like kind of distribute it like with that, like with the managers, and then they would relate it back to their teams. But in each branch we have got like specialists for like kind of each destination or each kind of holiday. So that's kind of like down to that individual who would then be like, right, so I'm touring adventure at the minute. So like I would go back to suppliers for touring adventure and I would get all that information and I could come back and easily kind of let the team know about what suppliers were using, what steps they're taking. And then one of my other colleagues, they're maybe like cruise or river cruise. So it's a good way for them to learn about it, them to get the information, but not overwhelm like one person with trying to get hundreds of suppliers like all the information. So and a lot of branches are doing the exact same thing where they're really focusing down on like one specific thing. And I think it's just easier than passing out information. We've got like internal groups as well, like teams and like share group emails, where if anything does come up, it's like just one quick message and it goes out company wide. So it's like a good way to like still pass on the information, like what suppliers are like really benefiting for like sustainability. So it's a good way to communicate.
Yeah, I guess it's sort of sharing that collective
Yeah,
knowledge is really useful. Yeah, no,
especially
that's
when not everyone sees each other, because obviously branches we only meet up really if there's like events and stuff like that, so it is hard, especially for like home workers as well, like you're not seeing each other regularly, whereas if you're in your team there's maybe 12 of you, it's not really making the impact that you probably want. So it's just try to spread out information where you can.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And have you seen a difference from from when you started your TTG Sustainable Travel Ambassadors course to now? I know it's been like a couple of years, and
Yeah.
within the company, has there been a change of knowledge and kind of people it just kind of clicks a bit more than maybe it did a couple of years ago because of that culture?
Yep. Yeah, we're finding now like when even when suppliers are doing presentations for us, it's like really heavily focused somewhere in there as well. We've got a lot of breakfast webinars that go on, so that's usually like maybe a supplier a week, and they do like a 30-minute call with us, really just to emphasise the product and what they've got available. And that's kind of what we're seeing is some part of it in that half an hour. It's maybe like 5-10 minutes they're really focusing on what they're pushing for, because it's really good to sell to a customer. If a customer does come in that's a bit more conscious, they're like, have you looked at this company because you've got all of this benefits, and then it kind of sets the customer up to be like a repeat or a loyal for that brand. So it works out really well.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. And just to remind everyone watching, I know there's loads of people, which is afternoon, but if you have any questions for Joe or for Jennifer, please just drop them in the chat and Q&A box, and we'll get to those. I think we've got sort of a few minutes left. But Joe, a sort of similar question: how do you share that knowledge across the company, and have you found that kind of that collective responsibility, that passion has grown, like you said, organically at the start because of people helping other people, and especially being a very sort of remote business in terms of a lot of home workers across the country and across other countries, sharing that best practice. Do you find, like Jennifer said, is it kind of WhatsApp messages, is it kind of groups like that you're kind of getting people together?
Well, definitely we're seeing more of it, both initiated by our travel counsellors and by customers and clients as well. When I first started, the inquiries, particularly from a customer point of view, were fairly few and far between, and that was only a couple of years ago. Whereas now, I'm getting them much more often, both from the corporate side of things, so business travel and also leisure as well. And as I said, some of it is our travel kind of sales staff saying, we want to run a more responsible, more sustainable business, so they're taking it to make it like a part of their brand. But yeah, in terms of sharing that knowledge, so coming back to that working group that we have, that's been a brilliant way to kind of pool knowledge, which was part of the reason that we set that up really. And we we have a training plan for people across the business anyway. So we have introduced sustainability into that. So we'll do some mandatory training when people start. I make sure I meet all the new people, often virtually through Teams. We'll have like a more informal conversation about it, sharing ideas with people. But then again, referring back to that group that I mentioned, understanding from them where they feel like the knowledge gaps are, making sure that we try and reflect that. 'Cause it's very much not a one and done subject. It's something that's constantly evolving. And if you did try and take all the information on in one go, you're just not going to do it. It's impossible. So we try and drip feed that in various different formats. So we've been probably more structured with it up until now, but we're looking at ways to try and broaden that out so that it isn't. So we think about it more holistically than just like a training module on it, because I think people take information in different ways. Some people written, some people prefer like listening to a podcast. Obviously, that's very popular now. So we're trying to explore different ways and always referring back to those people who are going to be taking the information on board and trying to understand what formats they like to take the information in, and try and reflect that. So I think videos and podcasts are one that we're kind of trying to hone in on a little bit more now and trying to cover the topic and conversations. I guess similar to this one. So you're not going to join this and think, oh, it's a training module. It's just possibly something of interest, but you take bits of information from it and you can apply that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the fact that you're trying different modes and sort of different methods on that. And Jennifer, what's next kind of for you guys at Barhead? I know you kind of trying different things as well, and kind of where are you going from here with that kind of, I guess, training and kind of engaging the team into sustainability?
Yeah, I think just constantly growing, like trying to get more of our agents in like chats like this, like to actually like jump on and do it a bit more independently. Is probably going to be like a really big focus for us. I mean, head office as well, they've got plans in place like for like the next kind of 5 years for business plans. So I think it is more just trying to narrow down and start taking wee bits here and there and then just kind of building it up, just so that we're not kind of going in and being like, right, this is like the overall picture. It's just obviously just trying to get people used to doing like the wee bits here and there that are not really affecting your daily, but overall it's starting to like really impact the bigger picture.
Yeah, definitely. And I kind of wanted to ask both of you. Obviously, sometimes there's like a generational gap in in some companies, and some people passionate about different things and have different issues and causes they believe in. How are you finding that between kind of bringing everyone under one roof to kind of pull in the same direction? And does it take a different way to excite and engage different parts of the team in this? Do you find, Jennifer, perhaps you kind of has it been a different thing for people to take things on board?
Yeah, I think as well, just like obviously you've got different generations, so like the older generation have a bit more stuck in their ways, from like the printing aspect of it, or like just like they are not as tech savvy. So sometimes it's just like the younger ones that are coming in, you're maybe like focusing more training with them, and then they're then going back to the ones that are maybe not as clued up and just helping, like to say, right, okay, this is maybe a way for you to try it. It has been really good. Like, I mean, a couple of like the team are older for me, and they'll come up to me and they'll say, can you help me how to like do this? Like, so it's just stuff to integrate. Like a lot of older people not older people, that's a bit, the older generation that have been doing it longer don't like trying new things. So I think that's when like the younger ones are coming in and being like, but look how easy it is. And it's just like showing them that actually you're saving time doing it and it's working a lot better. So it's just trying to get them on the same page, but maybe they think they're doing it for themselves first.
Yes. Yeah, and different skill sets and different point of views. And Joe, have you seen a kind of a similar thing, getting people with different experiences, different kind of takes on life, different backgrounds, kind of just pulling all that together?
We probably haven't seen that kind of age divide quite so much. Whenever I read reports, It always comes up in the report, and so I was just expecting eventually I would see it. But when we've kind of had calls about the subject and we've kind of spoke to people about why they're engaging in it, what I did notice was that people who maybe have kids would talk about how their kids got them into it. So maybe kids are learning about it at school and bringing it home. So maybe that's why we've seen like it balance out a little bit, because you have people who've kind of been through, let's say, just say younger people who've been through school and learn about it more actively there, and then others who have gone away and had kids, etc. And then their kids are kind of bringing it home and talking about it more, and it gives you a bit more of that thoughtfulness for the future, I guess. So we probably haven't seen the split quite so much, but we've definitely seen people getting into it for different reasons. Like when you think of it as a broad topic, sustainability and that three P's, people, planet, profit. Some people will get into it more from an environmental point of view, thinking of climate change, wildlife, and like habitat preservation. So that's kind of one, not even necessarily a group, but one motivation. And others are much more concerned about the human aspect to it. So we do find that differentiation in approach and how different people will be more concerned with certain areas, wanting to make sure that the holiday or the way that we run as a business doesn't negatively impact on people, whereas others are much more concerned on that environmental side of things. And I think it's all good. It's good to have people with different viewpoints on it, because it makes sure that you don't neglect one area of it, and we should be thinking about it holistically.
Yeah, very much. It takes a village, doesn't it, on something like this? And I know we've got just a bit of time left, a couple of minutes. But for customers, have you seen a big difference in kind of customers' mindsets and viewpoints on this from all the stuff that you've been doing in store? Jennifer, for instance, has the good work that's been doing in store to change people's mind to use, travel apps as opposed to printing off lots of pieces of paper and things like that? I know they're very small changes, but has that made an impact, do you think?
It's been a bit of a mixed bag, especially with the kind of older generation. They are very much set on they're wanting everything printed and they're wanting to have like that paper copy, and they're like, oh, we know we've got it in emails and we know, but it's just on the off chance like your phone doesn't work and it dies. So it is just trying to kind of gently nudge them, or even it's just like, okay, right, so you've got them, and like you say to them, right, show me that you've got them, and they'll take you through all the steps. And I'm like, right, okay, so I'll just print your boarding passes then, just to get you through security, because then you've got everything else. So it's even just try to do like wee micro things.
Yeah.
So it's just like you're not going to print them off a 7-page document. You're only print them off maybe one thing now, that's just to get them through for that security, because they go away and they're like, all right, okay, we can manage. And then the younger ones typically are just like, you know what, we're fine, we'll figure it out. Like that's kind of when you find they're like, yeah, we don't want to be carrying about bits of paper that we don't really need. But obviously worst comes to the airport staff typically will give people boarding cards anyway if it's like the bigger airlines. So customers do kind of tend to come and go a wee bit with us, but it's just trying to get them on board. And then sometimes they're a bit more conscious as well, like how they're travelling. So if you're obviously going like destination, it's just try to say, right, well, do you want to take a train instead of like flying for like an hour and a half? And it's just try to like build their package in a different way so that they wouldn't have known otherwise. So it's just try to pull things like that in for them, so that you don't actively need to say to them, we're sending a train instead of flying because it's better for the environment. But it's like, oh, you'll get to see all these sites. It's like a bit more relaxed, like you're not having to wait in queues at the airport. So it's just try to like maybe redirect them in that way from the get-go. So it's
totally, yeah, and sort of baking it in, and like I think, like Joe said, the experience side of things as well is beneficial. I think we've got 1 minute left, so a very, very quick question for both of you. We'll start with you, Joe. Basically, if agents are watching this, which they are, there's lots and that's brilliant, but they're a little bit wary about maybe where to start, or kind of how to really kickstart their own sustainability journey in their own business. What's maybe a piece of advice, or kind of a thing that you would maybe say to them to do, they could maybe do tomorrow, for instance, just something small that could have an impact?
I would just start by trying to understand what your reach is in terms of like what you can do day to day. So for us, and I'm not saying everyone goes and starts doing the carbon footprint, but for us it was writing that down, because then we could see, right, that's a problem area for us, so we can put initiatives in place. So just writing down where you can have an impact, the things that you do, and don't even necessarily need to think about it in a sustainability scope when you're first doing it, but it'll just highlight areas for you where you can, make changes.
Fantastic. And Jennifer, what would you say to that question? That sort of small impact you can maybe do tomorrow?
literally just go for it. Like literally just think of like you probably do more than what you realise anyway, for like these small changes. But obviously TTG have got some amazing articles already written about sustainability. So it's even just reading some small ones and you'll be reading through it and you'll be like, actually I do this already. So you're probably integrated a lot more than what you've realised.
Yeah, that's a lovely way. Thank you very much for the plug for TTG. We really appreciate that. And also just for saying that it is actually people are doing a lot more than maybe they realise, which I think is a lovely way to end on that. Joe, Jennifer, thank you so much for your time and for being involved in that conversation. That was fantastic. And now it's time for our next panel discussion of the afternoon. If you please join TTG's editorial director, Pippa Jacks, and her fantastic experts for choosing responsible suppliers and asking the right questions. That session is just about to start. If you go back into the lobby and if you choose that session there. But to Joe and Jennifer, thank you very much for joining me. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.